HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. defending massive cuts to his department while appearing at a pair of confrontational congressional budget hearings yesterday.
Did somebody get Elon Musk's computer and say, okay, just make 20% cuts? You know,
I disagree with your entire characterization. It was like the recitation of a narrative that, everybody knows out there. And it's the Democratic Party narrative.
Do you disagree with the cuts that are being proposed for Medicaid right now?
Oh, the cuts to, this is I don't know if you understand this or whether you're just mouthing, the Democratic talking points. The cuts to Medicaid are for fraud, waste, and abuse.
Kentucky Senator Rand Paul was at the Senate hearing and joins us now. Good morning to you, Senator.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Good morning. Well, thanks for coming on. I know you have talked a lot about some of the waste that we've had to cut from our budgets. Tell the folks at home some of the studies that were cut.
Well, I compliment Secretary Kennedy and the Trump administration for finally saying enough's enough. We're not going to keep funding frivolous and crazy research. I pointed out 3 grants yesterday. One was nearly $750,000 to study microaggressions against obese Latinx. And I say that slowly because most people don't even know what that means to unpack. What is microaggressions against obese Latinx? But it surely doesn't sound like science. Another study I pointed out was, do happy rats use more cocaine than unhappy rats? The last one, and this one's the last one's even more profound. Do girls who think they are boys still have a problem with pregnancy? And lo and behold, girls who think they're boys can still get pregnant. Be warned. And but they had to have a special study that cost nearly $750,000 also. So this kind of craziness has been going on not for a couple years. This didn't start in the Biden years. This has been going on since the 70s. William Proxmire complained about it for 2 decades. I've been complaining about it for a decade. But finally, we have someone, President Trump, willing to stand up and say enough's enough, and he's requesting a reduced budget for these grants. That's the only way you'll direct the money towards more significant disease like obesity, heart disease, diabetes, cancer, Alzheimer's, autism. That's where the money ought to go, but it shouldn't go to these crazy, loony things that any common sense American would say are nuts.
And then there was that exchange with Senator Murray, and I know you witnessed that, where she was saying, I have a constituent in my area. She can't get into this clinical trial. She has stage 4 cancer. She needs to be in it. And he said, have her call my office. I'll see what's going on. Then y'all take a recess. He comes back and he said, I just did my research to find out about her case, and she's ineligible for this trial.
Yeah, and I talked to him again last night about it. He wants to do whatever he can, obviously, to make sure anybody who's eligible can get in a trial. But the way trials work are, and these are very desperate, people are in the process, unfortunately, of dying from cancer, and they want any kind of chance they can get. But if you're too far along, sometimes you don't qualify for the trial. So if the trial's trying to determine if you're stage 3, can we add some months to your life, but it's not showing progress for 4, I think there should be a compassionate use, like a right to try outside of the trial, but the trial has to stay rigid because the trial's trying to determine, if you put everybody that was stage 4 and they all died, you'd say, oh, well, the medicine doesn't work. But maybe if you give all stage 3, it prolongs their life 6 months, and people have to decide, is it worth taking the chemotherapy? But this was really a falsehood put forward by the Democrat senator to say it was because of reductions in manpower and cuts, and instead it was completely legitimate based on the medical criteria, and is really a disgusting way to use someone as a pawn who actually is desperate to try to hang on to life, to use that person as a pawn for political purposes. I think is unforgivable.
Yeah, Senator, her name is Natalie Phelps, if people out there want to pray for her with her cancer. Also, let's talk about the big, beautiful bill. I know you're still a no on that. Sean Hannity asked the president about the debt ceiling. Listen to this.
I think a lot of Democrats are going to be forced to vote for the bill because, you add this new element that if this bill passes, you're going to get a 50 to 90% reduction in prescription drugs and pharmaceuticals. When you add that in, how does a Democrat not vote? I don't think they can win an election if they don't vote for it. But even if you don't include it, I think that the Republicans are very unified, and something would happen where they will get this vote.
Senator, what do you need to see in this bill to be on board?
The problem is it's asking conservatives like myself to raise the debt ceiling $5 trillion. That's historic. No one's ever raised the debt ceiling that much. It will be a record for Congress to raise the debt $5 trillion. But also it indicates that this year the deficit will be over $2 trillion, but it means they're anticipating close to $3 trillion for the next year. It's really a slap in the face at those of us who are excited about Elon Musk and Doge and all the cuts. Where are the cuts? If the cuts are real, why are we going to borrow $5 trillion? So what I proposed was this. I put forward a proposal, and we voted on it, to raise the debt ceiling for 3 months. Why? Because I think we should vote on the debt ceiling every 3 or 4 months to see if they're doing their job. If they promise us cuts in spending, not just the administration, I'm talking about congressional leaders as well. If the promises are real, I'll vote to raise it every 3 months. So I put forward that amendment. Unfortunately, I only got a handful of votes, but I think that's the way to do it. If you raise it $5 trillion for 2 years, you just put it on the back burner, but we're going to coast through that money and we're going to spend it all. And that's not what the people want. That's not what our supporters want.
All right, Congressman, sorry. Senator, maybe y'all can come to an agreement eventually. Thank you so much for coming on this morning.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.